It's calm out there today, but storm clouds are brewing. Our active pattern returns with a bang! Thunderstorms, strong winds, heavy rain, hail, and even tornadoes are possible as a multi-day severe weather event looks more likely. But who will see what? I'll have the answers, plus we'll take a quick peek at the long range and snow in the Northeast. So hop aboard the Cold Rain Weather Express. Cold Rain's weather outlook is leaving the station right now. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. Jason Pritchard here with another episode of Cold Rain's Weather Outlook. Happy Thursday to you. I hope your week has gone well so far. We're staring down the barrel of another weekend and we've got pretty tranquil weather out there today, but that's going to change in a big way. A couple of notable weather events are on tap to hit the United States early next week and to mid next week, and so we're going to take a look at what might be a fairly significant severe weather threat. Before we do that, I want to ask you to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button if you like the content. Leave a comment in the comment section, question about the show, a suggestion for me, a prayer request, something we can pray over for you. Happy to look at all of those comments and I'll respond to every single one of them. So anyways, without further ado, let's go ahead and jump in to the weather. As I said, pretty quiet out there today. We've got a little bit of a low pressure zone and a cold front, really across the southern border here, swinging up into this parent system that's affecting the Great Lakes into the Northeast with some rain and even some snow. So you can kind of see that here on the surface map. We've got some freezing rain and some mixed precipitation in this area, snow falling across some of the northern portions of the Northeast. And so we're going to take a look at how much snowfall we're going to see there. Pretty quiet out west where high pressure is dominating the country, so we're not really seeing much in the way of precipitation out there. If we look at our satellite imagery here, we can put this into motion here. I'm going to scroll down here and get it going down here at the bottom of the page, and then we'll see how this sort of shakes out. Jump to a different display here and we can really see this up in the Northeast is where most of the activity is with that system. So low and high clouds up here where you've got precipitation falling. Little frontal zone, as we saw on the surface map, kind of extends back down toward Texas. We've got a little area of showers that moving it through Tennessee, looks to move into western North Carolina pretty soon. It's cloudy in Morganton where I'm at today, but it's going to end up being a nice day. So few clouds rolling in across the border into Montana, North Dakota, down into Wyoming, eventually into Utah. A little bit of a cloud cover working into Washington, but most of the nation pretty clear. And as I said, fair weather's on tap for the next few days, but we're going to get into next week, and it's going to be interesting to say the least. Look at the radar stop. Not much doing across most of the country. Little area of showers down here, as I alluded to. We can kind of click in here and zoom in a little bit so you can see Bristol to Knoxville. You're getting some rain, a little heavier cells up here just north of Bristol into Virginia. That line extends, kind of broken line extends all the way up through Washington, Philadelphia, New York, just east of Scranton, and we get on up here into the Northeast. And you can see where the bulk of the activity is. Some heavy rain here in upstate New York up toward Kingston. And then over on the north end of this, just north of Albany into Concord and Augusta, Maine, you're seeing some snowfall. So rain, little mixed precipitation, snow, that's all falling here this morning. This system is moving out, and we'll put the radar in motion so you can kind of see how this is playing out. But it's going to move out over the course of the day and into the night. Some light snow falling above the border, but some light rain across through the Great Lakes. As these clippers come by, they tend to shift the winds around, and so you'll end up seeing some precipitation develop on the lee of some of these lakes. You'll see that particularly as we go on and take a look at a little bit of the longer range period here. So that's our radar stop for today. Temperature map, nothing scary at all. No real purples on here, whites, or any of those scary colors that mean the deep freeze, the polar vortex, the Arctic plunge, whatever you want to call it. None of that going on. 30s over here in the mountain regions, the Rocky Mountain regions, where you've got the higher peaks, you're in the 20s. But generally, Seattle, Medford, Reno, Las Vegas, all in the 40s and 50s. 40s and 50s dominate the southern tier of the nation. It's not till you get up here into the Northeast where you start to get below freezing, and it's where some of that snow is falling. So, temperature map is pretty above normal for this time of year for much of the nation. That's going to be the theme as we go through the next couple of days. So that's your current weather roundup. Our next stop is going to be up here in the Northeast, where you all are experiencing a little bit of light to moderate snow, some mixed precipitation, sleet, freezing rain kind of mixing in as you get in toward the rain shield. And so we're looking at the European, it's essentially the surface map that shows areas of high and low pressure, and then, of course, precipitation types as well. So rolling this on out, so this is essentially what it looks like now when I'm recording this video. And this is about 10:30, 11:30 actually a.m. Eastern time. Rolling this on out through the course of this afternoon into tonight, you see the main area of snow shifts into New Hampshire, up into Maine, rain, of course, back over New York and the rest of New England. And then that pulls on out tonight as we get into the overnight hours. And then you're just left with some light snow showers tomorrow across much of the area, the northern part of New England at least. And then that storm system pulls away, and the next storm system kind of comes in. It's a clipper system. It's pretty strong, 989 millibar low. And so it's, not a deep storm or anything like that, but it's just a clipper. It's going to bring in some more moderate to occasionally heavy snow if you get under a snow band. That's going to pull through the northern part of New England, and then on out of the picture as we get into Sunday, again with some light wraparound snow showers. The wind's going to shift over out of the northeast and then into the east. And so in the lee of the lakes, you'll probably see some snow banding set up there and have a little bit of lake effect snow as the snow machine starts cranking up a little bit in the wake of that system. And then it moves on out and everything quiets down. And so that's what happens there in the Northeast. Taking a look at the snowfall output, if we go on here, this is the 3K NAM. I wouldn't necessarily, I don't always buy into the 3K NAM snowfall totals, but generally speaking, 2 to 4, maybe 5 inches of snow in spots if you get under a snow band. And then the next, the system pulls away over the weekend. The next system kind of comes in, and some of the higher elevations, you're going to get a little bit more in the way of snow. But that next system comes in and drops another kind of moderate to heavy band of snow in spots. And so portions of New England going to pick up, from both of these systems. You could be looking at 4 to as much as 6 inches of snow. Higher elevations may see, squeeze a little bit more moisture out. But at the end of the day, nice little snow event for, the northern part, upstate New York, northern part of New England, up here in Vermont, New Hampshire, up into Maine. And so that's what it looks like for you guys. And then things will settle down as we start to get into the work week. So now for the main event, this is where we'll spend the bulk of our time today. You're seeing a lot of social media posts about a big severe weather outbreak next week. The Storm Prediction Center is concerned about it, and you're hearing a lot about it probably if you're following the weather. And if you're following the weather, you're probably watching videos like this one. And so I'm going to try to make sense of it for you and show you a little bit about what's going on. We've been talking about it over the last couple of days. I talked about it yesterday on Cold Rain's Weather World and kind of got into some of the dynamics and the differences in the models that we're seeing. But there's become a fairly good agreement among models, GFS, Canadian, European, that a storm system is going to develop next Monday or so in the Four Corners region, and then spread, strengthen, and head off toward the Great Lakes and bring a cold front along with an attending severe weather threat from Texas all the way across potentially into the Tennessee Valley and to the lower mid-Atlantic, so all the way across the deep south. So we're going to have to watch how this unfolds. And of course, the strength of the storm, the track of the storm, all of those things are going to make a difference. How much moisture can get pulled in, how unstable the air can be. So we're going to be watching all of that. But we're going to start here. Let's go here to our jet stream. And we're going to roll this forward. I'm going to go ahead and advance it along here to about where we see the storm initiating around 120 hours out. That's Monday evening. And so we're starting to see that take shape here. We talked about this yesterday in the Cold Rain's Weather World episode about this trough, how it begins to take on kind of this neutral meridional up and down, or even a negative tilt northwest to southeast. When you start to see storms developing and you get these negatively tilted troughs, they tend to pull up good moisture out of the south and southwest, southeast from a big moisture source, for example, the Gulf of Cold Rain. We can start to see moisture flow in out of here, and we're going to see that in a minute. But if we put this jet stream along, we're going to see Monday into Tuesday into Wednesday, this thing really starts to take shape. And look at this. So you got a big negatively tilted trough. You've even got this sort of this dual jet structure. So within the background flow of the jet stream that kind of goes along like this, you've got these jet streaks like this orange here up over the Great Lakes into Canada, and then down here into Texas, you've got another kind of jet streak in Louisiana. And sometimes these are a little bit closer to each other and can interact better. But where you see this area between these jet streaks, if we roll this back a little bit, you can kind of see it developing here. But this is where you get strong lift. We won't get into jet dynamics, but really you start to see strong lift. And that would concur with a surface map that we're going to take a look at, where we see a strong line of storms here. So the jet stream sort of bears out the storm system. It moves on out of the picture, and then we kind of get back into a zonal flow again as we get toward Wednesday, Thursday of March 5th and the 6th, so next week. And so end of the week should quiet down a bit. A lot of energy coming into California and the Northwest again. So I'm not going to call it an atmospheric river yet, but you guys, the energy for this upcoming storm it will be coming ashore in the next couple of days. And so with that, as we get into the weekend, you'll start to see rainfall pick up, particularly, and maybe some snow in the mountains as well. So that's the jet stream. Now, a couple of ingredients you need for thunderstorms: strong moisture, strong instability or instability. We'll just call it, we need instability. And to produce that, we need warm temperatures at the surface, we need rich moisture at the surface, and we need cooling as we go up into the atmosphere. And so you can see right here, as that storm system starts to take shape, I'm going to roll the dew point. This is a dew point projection, and so you can see dew points coming in. These are 50s, upper 50s into 60s, even 70s in the darker greens. Very impressive for thunderstorm development. So you can see as that storm system kind of winds up, you see the little cyclonic curvature here with the drier air to the west, the moisture air on the east kind of getting pulled in. And look at this, as it goes on into, we get into Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. All of that moisture surges up. It gets pulled into the Carolinas and then off as the storm moves out. Cold front comes through, dries you out, cools you down. But ingredient number one is met, rich moisture. Now, what's ingredient number two? Moisture and heat and descending or cooling with height equals instability. This is a measure of instability. We call it CAPE, convective available potential energy. See, you learn a couple things here at Cold Rains Weather World you might not hear about on other channels. So we're going to talk about some of these things more in Cold Rains Weather World. And so right here, Texas, this is, again, we're back to Monday night, Monday evening. And look, as that storm system takes shape, look at this CAPE. So this instability, you get into these greens, even the yellows, you have decent instability. So the thunderstorm has fuel. It's like gas for your car. Thunderstorm has fuel to work with. This gets pulled up and translates on east. Look at the Carolinas here as we get into Wednesday evening. This is pretty good timing with instability. The thunderstorm complex should be moving in, making use of this Wednesday evening if the timing holds. And of course, that's several days out. We're looking at 7 days out. So the timing on these things matters. If it comes in overnight, instability will be a little bit lower. But look at that. So it gets pulled off, and then your instability is on. So we've got moisture, we've got instability. And the last thing we look at is wind shear. Wind shear can kind of be in two flavors. Turning with height, so winds could be out of the southwest at the surface, then out of the west as you go up a little bit farther, and then out of the west, northwest, and west, so they kind of turn. That's called directional shear. The other thing we look at is speed shear. So lower speeds at the surface increasing as you go up. And so one of the layers that we look at is the 850 millibar layer, about 5,000 feet off the ground. And so this is next Monday night, Monday evening, Monday night. Putting this into motion, look what we got here, an increasing jet at 850. This is in knots. You can convert knots to miles per hour by multiplying 1.15. Another good tip for you. And so you can see that the increase here, 40, 50 mile an hour or not jet streak developing. And so look at this as we go on into Tuesday evening, overnight Tuesday into Wednesday. Look at that. We're talking 70, 75 up to 80 knots in the jet. And so at 850, so that's pretty substantial jet at 850. That works on into the Carolinas, into the mid-Atlantic. So if you've got strong thunderstorms, it's going to be able to translate those winds down to the surface. And so even if you don't get a tornado threat, you could have a wind threat. But next week's going to be interesting. It's going to be a wild ride. Tornadoes are possible with strong directional shear and instability as well. This doesn't look like one of your more historic type setups. So if you start to see that on social media, unless the models support it, I wouldn't panic about all of it. But if you're in the South, from Texas to the Tennessee Valley to the lower mid-Atlantic, you need to be weather aware as we get through the weekend and watch how this unfolds. Now, if we go to our surface map, we can kind of see it here. I'm going to go down to a different display and make this a little bit better. But Monday evening, overnight, you start to see that storm take shape right out here in, over Kansas, and watch this 993 millibar low. That's going to move, strengthen to 988 and move off to the Great Lakes, and you've got thunderstorms that have developed. You've got a little activity, kind of got a main line here, and some activity out ahead of that. The model's trying to represent some supercellular activity because it's picking up on that directional shear. And so you're going to have a favorable environment, it looks like, for at least some wind damage and potentially tornadoes. And then as you get on into Wednesday evening and overnight Thursday, that line, see, I'm going to back it up a little bit, see it kind of comes through the Carolinas. It breaks apart a little bit as we get into overnight, and then it picks back up steam out into the Atlantic. So timing of when the system approaches your particular area is going to matter. Overnight, you have less fuel for the thunderstorms. During the morning hours and afternoon hours is where your instability is maximized. So we're going to watch all of this, but the potential is there for tornadoes, strong winds, heavy rain, even some hail. So pay attention. Timing is next Monday to Tuesday to Wednesday, and all of that will be out of our hair come Thursday and Friday. Some other systems are kind of moving into the west as we go out in time, but we're not going to really dive into all of that right now. And then the Storm Prediction Center has at day 6 here. This is this is issued today, February the 27th, and this is valid for essentially Tuesday into Wednesday. And you're seeing a 30% chance of, it's pretty impressive for a day 6 map, 30% over the Arklatex essentially, and then larger area, 15%. We get out into day 7. The eastern seaboard is under the gun from Georgia up into basically southeast Virginia. So we're going to pay attention to all of this. A big severe weather threat down here is unfolding and getting underway as we start the work week. So we're going to look at that in more detail as we have more model data to work with over the next couple of cycles. Looking at our temperatures, I'm going to stay here on this display for a second. You can see how that's going to play out over the next few days. Let's roll this back. This is a European ensemble 2 meter temperature anomaly. So this is going to show us where we expect to see warm versus colder than average, and we'll get back over into the current time period here and look. So tomorrow we're looking at warmer temperatures than average over much of the country into Friday, into the weekend. It starts to back off as we get into the heartland section of the Great Lakes, down into the Northeast, and even parts of the South as we get through the day on Saturday. That cold punch comes in through Sunday and Monday, and then out ahead of this next system, warms up. All of that warm air is going to spread on off to the east, and you can see, look at that. So big, nice, warm sector over the entire eastern half of the country, cooler out west ahead of that system. That warm air is just going to basically be fuel for the fire. And then as the system comes through, cold front somewhere right in here, kicking all that warm air out, and then you get a little bit of a return to average. And so over the next 7 days, roller coaster ride for temps, especially in the east, ahead of that storm system. So watch out for the daily, turn to your local forecast, the National Weather Service, your local news channel. They'll have temperatures for your area. You're going to need a coat one day, and the next day you'll be in shorts. That's just how it goes in the spring in the United States. Total precipitation over the next 7 days, higher amounts in the east. The 1 to 2 inches could fall with some of these stronger storms. Out west, same deal. You've got these systems coming into California, into Oregon, into Washington. So half an inch in the lowlands, up to 2 or 3 inches up in the peaks, the mountains. And then your snowfall forecast, most of that's going to occur in the northeast over the next couple of days with those systems I showed you earlier. Maybe some light snow across the northern tier, back into the Rockies and the higher peaks, Sierra Nevadas, Cascades. You're going to squeeze out some snow there as those systems move on in. So that is your 7-day outlook. A lot to look at as we as we go through the next few days with that severe weather event. So the last little segment we're going to do here is take a quick peek at the long range. We spend more time on this on Cold Rain's Weather World, do a little bit of a deeper dive. So tune into that if you want to see more. But we've had a lot to cover today, so we're just going to kind of sprint through this here. And so what you're looking at is the North American view of the 500 millibar, so about 18,000 feet up or so, the anomaly map. So these oranges represent ridging. The blue represent troughing. Under the blues, you'd expect to be a little cooler than normal at the surface, depending on how this all shakes out. And then under the oranges, you see a little bit warmer, anomalies at the surface. So putting this forward into day 7, day 8, day 9, we get on out here to March 7th, March 8th, Saturday, next Friday and Saturday. Big trough in the east. Again, we're starting to see agreement here that where it looked like we're just going to be wall-to-wall warmth for the next 2 weeks, a trough is going to sort of settle into the east. None of this stuff is going to be permanent, though. So we get a couple of days of a cooler shot here in the east, warming up out west, and the next trough comes into the west, and you get a little ridge response out here. And this one looks to have a little bit more staying power if we roll this on out into the end of the period. It sort of sits there anchored. We've seen this happen the last few days where the models, both the GFS and the European, have wanted to park a ridge right over the eastern part of the country or into the Atlantic or the southeast and dip a big trough into the west. And we just have seen that continue to be pushed back. It's usually the other way around. In wintertime, you get the cold weather pushback. This time it's the warm weather getting pushed back. But either way, we're still going to be on that temperature roller coaster. So don't think that I'm telling you that we're going to be cold with lots of winter and snow and all of that stuff. It's going to be up and down, which leads to active weather, actually. And so we'll see that play out there. Your anomalies, these are a 5-day rolling mean. So this is days 5 through 7. So every time I advance this, it's looking at an average over the last 5 days. So March the 7th through March the 8th. And then we see so this is a 5-day mean. So 5 through 9 are warm in the east, cool in the west. Days 7 through 11 looks pretty similar, warm in the east, cool in the west. And then we've got a couple of those cool shots coming out I was telling you about. So it starts the average over the 5-day period starts to show that and cool off in the west and warm up a little bit in the east. And so we're not talking about anything major. So we're talking about right around average, maybe a couple of degrees below. And then we see in the temperature response to that ridge out west, trough in the east couplet, a little bit of a warming trend going on in the center and the east. So the last 5 days of the period look to be warming up, and we'll get even warmer than this if that pattern holds. So that's your temperature outlook. Total accumulated precipitation, this includes rain and snow. We're looking at 1 to 2 to 3 inches of rain. A lot of that's coming with that particular system that we saw. There's a couple of little light systems in between, but the main severe weather event is going to bring quite a bit of rain here in the south. And then systems are coming back into the west coast again, and they're going to increase your precipitation out here. Higher elevations are going to see a lot of snow, and elevations along the coast and the valleys, you're going to see much more in the way of rain, maybe a couple of inches of rain, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches of rain again over the course of two weeks, starting essentially next week. And that's it. There's your general jet stream pattern. It sort of features what I was showing you. You see these systems kind of coming into the west coast here, kind of a zonal southwest flow here. It's going to bring in mild air into the east. And then you look at that, how that plays out. So these systems are still kind of coming into the west here. So west coast, you folks are going to be back under the gun with some rain. And there we go. End of the period, trough out west, ridge in the east. As the model sees it today, we'll see. As the models turn, we'll turn with them and relay all that information to you. And with that wraps up our show today. I hope you've learned a few things, had a good time with me today. I've had a good time putting this together for you. We'll do it again tomorrow. Maybe have a Cold Rain's Weather World tomorrow, a little bit of a longer show and some fun segments in there too. Follow me on Twitter at Real Cold Rain. I'll keep you up to date if I see any changes there. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So hope you have a great rest of the day and a nice end to the week. Take care.